Hello and welcome into the PHNX Cardinals podcast presented by the DraftKings Sportsbook app, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Be sure to like, subscribe, leave us a 5-star review. I'm Johnny Venerable, joined as always by Mr. Bo Brock live, PHNX Studios, and the return of DA Damien Anderson, the pride of Northwestern. Very apropos today. Gentlemen, how we doing on this final day? It was a quick one of mandatory minicamp for the Arizona Cardinals.
I think we're doing good, Johnny.
Okay.
Considering, right? We're not actually playing or having to suit up or play center, right? So I think we're doing okay. I think the fan base is a bit disgruntled right now and is wondering what's going on. As are the Cardinals, as are I'm sure Rodney Hudson's teammates. I think what this situation creates is it puts a stressor on the fact that there's more than football. And I know that our job is to talk about football and the Arizona Cardinals, but I think individually when you peel away the layers and, when a person's been banging for a long period of time, who knows what they experience. So, hopefully that, the Cardinals and obviously Rodney make it through, but most importantly, I hope that Rodney, makes whatever best decision for he and his family moving forward.
I'll tell you what the best decision for his family is collect a paycheck for $10 million plus this season and be that center for Kyler Murray. I think that's got to be the right play, but no, absolutely. I'm just joking there. It's going to be one of those interesting things where this has been so under the radar this offseason. We haven't been, maybe the signs have been there and we haven't been paying attention because we've been paying so much attention to Kyler Murray, but it is talk about one of the players outside of K1 that you can't stand to lose. This is absolutely a nightmare scenario for the Arizona Cardinals, potentially losing their Pro Bowl caliber starting center. Before we get deep into that conversation, I wanted to kind of talk to our guy DA. On days like this, during your playing career, a guy that had the scratch and claw for everything that you got as a pro, what were days like this, like when it was the end of this long off season, when you had to put in all that work, you had to be at the facility for everything. You didn't have that luxury of not showing up to actually go on summer vacation. Was it like the last day of school?
I think that it was, but you're playing football, right? It's something that you've done your entire life. So everything about it is surreal. You're with your best friends every day on the practice field. Just imagine, Johnny, when he played, toddler football, like 6-man, and he's having those great memories in the locker room where they're cracking,
those Capri Sun memories, gummy memories.
Think about it. What I say about the game of football, what it does, the good parts, like it extends your childhood because you really don't have to grow up. You have, a pretty good money considerably. Considering I know inflation's crazy right now, but I think that they're okay in terms of their paycheck. But when I played, things are a little different. But I think that you're just extending your childhood. You get to hang out, buy what you want, live the life that you want. But that just shows you whatever he's going through, that being, Rodney, is something serious. But no, you're loving that it's going to get a break, and because it's going to get real, Bo, in terms of when you go back and you have to suit up and do everything that you can to make this football team.
I think this situation is incredibly serious because of the fact that we started these conversations with mandatory minicamp 3 days ago, and they're already over. Mandatory minicamp is over, and I don't know what can be garnered from it. I've seen the Cardinals sign players after mandatory minicamp, and they've come in and had a huge impact on this team. Once upon a time, John Abraham was signed after mandatory minicamp. I believe Eric Winston, a bunch of players, right? Kelvin Beachum might have been signed after mandatory minicamp and went on to be prolific starters for this Cardinal team and pivoted that to a second contract. So I feel like if the situation was that much of, hey, Rodney, kick it until training camp, don't come around the facility, no problem. Like, you can work that shit out. But when you're publicly commenting on Rodney Hudson saying it's unexcused and it's a 2.5 day kind of spiel here before you're set free for 45 days, it's a huge red flag. When you've got your best interior offensive lineman outside of Rodney Hudson now playing significant snaps for the first time at center to start, presumably, with Kyler Murray, it's a huge red flag. We posted this at GoPHNX, PHNX Cardinals Twitter today, basically saying, has Rodney Hudson played his last snap for the Arizona Cardinals? And there was a lot of pushback, like, Johnny, Cardinals, you're overreacting. We just started this whole thing. We didn't just start it. To Bo's point just now, it's been masked beautifully by the front office. It's been under the radar a little bit. Didn't talk about during OTAs, didn't talk about it in free agency in the draft, but I'll pose the question to you guys. Like, here we are, mid-June, and we're about, a month and a half away from, let's get real. We're going to try to find our 53, our best combination of 53 training camp football. Is Rodney Hudson done with the Arizona Cardinals? I'll start with you, Bo.
Wow. I mean, I don't think he is. I really don't. And I think he's got 10 million reasons why he should come back. And even with, whatever fine he's facing for missing mandatory minicamp, because he will, maybe he wanted that time off. Maybe he felt like, okay, look, this team hasn't addressed my position, my backup spot, even at this point in the offseason. And I have nobody gunning for me as far as taking my starting role away. I'll just chill at home.
He ain't. I don't think it's that, Bo. I just think that I think it's at a point where guys in their career, towards the latter part of their career, those body aches, it takes a long time to recover from, both physically and mentally, and it just builds up. And if the timing's not right, I mean, I don't necessarily put myself in that situation because I've never crossed that road, right? I mean, it seems unheard of that we're talking about a guy, as you said, Bo, to make $10 million and potentially just walk away from it. I mean, to the average working class man, that's absurd. So that has to show you that he's going through something. To your question, Johnny, is it his last step? I'd say right now it's just 50-50. I mean, it's huge him not coming to, with that, just thinking about that, I would say maybe 55-45, in favor of no, because I think that's just a glaring point. Like, hey, I didn't show up during the mandatory part of it because I'm not sure if this is what I want to do. I mean, that's the only conclusion that you could draw, unless it's, it's unexcused. I mean, we all know it's COVID going on, unexplained circumstances, right? You make adjustments like, hey, he's dealing with something. It's just the language, right? The position of the Arizona Cardinals. And it's not like one where they're, trying to mask how they feel. They're like, hey, it's an issue he's dealing with. We're
speculating. Yeah, we're speculating because we don't know. And there's a lot of good comments in the chat. Here's one from Pickin' Spreads. I think Rodney didn't care. I just think he didn't want to show up. He'll be back at training camp. I think Rodney, being a vet, thought it maybe be okay with how cool and shit Cliff usually is. Pickin' Spreads, I feel like if that was the case, Cliff would have been cool about it. It's one of your best players on the team. Right. This is a guy that everybody voted a captain last year. This was the straw that stirred the drink. A lot of players said that losing him over DeAndre Hopkins was a bigger loss to what it did for the infrastructure of this offense. And if Rodney Hudson respectfully came to Cliff and Keim and said, guys, this is my umpteenth, off season. I need to get my body right. I was banged up last year. We have 17 games now. It's a grind. You guys, am I cool just to kind of cruise into training camp? I'll be, I'm a professional. I'll be in good shape. I can take care of my conditioning on my own. You really think Cliff Kingsbury and Steve Keim are going to say no to Rodney Hudson?
Well, no,
Rodney
I don't think that's
what happened.
I don't think that's what happened. I think that there's absolute frustration from the organization about him not being there, no doubt about it. But what are they going to do? I mean, if Rodney Hudson shows up for first day of training camp, he's going to
thank you.
Yeah, he's going to be given the starting center role right back. He could show up week 1 against the Kansas City Chiefs. I mean, what are they going to do? Unless they go out and they sign a guy like, was it J.C. Tretter or whoever it may be, whoever's available
or somebody like that.
You're going to be in tough shape, no doubt about it. That's why a guy like Rodney Hudson, with his resume, he can walk right back through the doors of the facility and get his role back. I'm not saying that this was something that they agreed upon. Absolutely not. And a guy like Cliff Kingsbury showed yesterday his frustration during his press availability when he said, hey, this is unexcused. And he, his body language showed, I mean, even for him, a player's coach, he's frustrated with this because, this is stuff that he's been putting in the work, from the final whistle at against the Rams to now. He said he's finally going on vacation. This is a thing that he's been grinding out. You want everybody else to be there with you, and Rodney Hudson's not there. And I think that's where the frustration is. Now it's you have to figure out, if you're Steve Keim, if you're Cliff Kingsbury, if you're Kyler Murray, if you're the leaders of this team, I think, regardless of him missing 2 days, you have to find a way to get this guy back on the roster when it matters. Training camp, regular season.
My best guess, if you're asking me, I think he wants to play for another team. I don't think he wants to retire, because I don't think they'd be docking him as an unexcused absence if he's debating whether or not to retire. They give him ample time. Take a deep breath, Rodney. Think about it. I think Rodney potentially is trying to force his way into another situation, maybe another place he'd like to play. And they're pissed off because they gave up premium compensation in the 3rd-round pick, and they signed him to a multi-year deal thinking that he was going to be around long-term. That's the only – give me another possible scenario in which Cliff Kingsbury, and Sly said it in the chat. I've never seen Cliff that mad than he was yesterday. Give me another scenario in which Cliff Kingsbury responds that way if it's not for a player that you felt like wanted out and wanted to go play for somebody else. That was Patrick Peterson-esque response from, Steve Wilkes and Steve Keim once upon a time when Pat's asking for a trade. I really do believe that has to be it. I have to be convinced otherwise that it's something else.
I mean, Cliff being a player coach, and we've always seen him, take the shield for his players and stick up for his guys and give them the benefit of the doubt. And I think that there was a mention of body language and or the narrative and how he's talking about it, right? He's not the most happy. Like, as you guys said, it's unhappiest he's been since we've seen him in terms of players showing up. But Jalen Blair brought up some great points in the chat, and he talked about Chandler Jones or Jordan Hicks weren't here last year. How was that?
But that's what I'm saying. Like, if that was an issue.
Johnny? But how was that received last year by Cliff? I don't remember many people talking about it.
Well, Chandler asked for a trade because he wanted more money, and that's a whole different scenario. Remember, Chandler wanted his long-term deal. We didn't know if he was going to show up. Rodney has his money. Jordan Hicks was potentially being cut. Remember, for Zaven Collins, he was looking for a trade of his own. We can put it in that category where both of those players were completely in flux this time last year. There was talk Jones could get traded and Hicks could get traded or cut. So if we want to use that same analogy, okay, let's put Rodney Hudson in this scenario. Could he be traded? Could he be traded to another team?
Well, I mean, and that's a great point because Jordan P. just said in the chat that Rodney didn't seem happy here. And I can't speak on the man's, overall idea of what he thought of Arizona or, in comparison to other places. But just given the new coach, given Kyler Murray, given the talent that they have offensively, and him being a building block, a foundational piece to that, what do you guys think happened that made him to be that disgruntled? Like, what do you think is the disconnect? Just, I don't want to be in, hot ass Arizona, or do you think it's a teammate thing and, this guy or gal rubbed me the wrong way? What is going on with, like you said, about $10 million, man? Like that just seems crazy to me.
Everything I've seen from interviews to interactions to everything with Rodney Hudson, nothing would have led you to believe he was unhappy here. I think he had as far as last season went, I mean, talk about, going through it. He had the rib injury, which sucks. He had COVID, didn't he? I mean, he had issues as far as the offense. I don't think he played up to, what he would consider his level of play. The snap issues, I mean, even Max Garcia looked a little bit better sometimes snapping the football out of the shotgun than Rodney Hudson. I don't know what it is. I think as far as Rodney Hudson, I think your point as far as at this stage of a player's career, that no matter what you're getting paycheck wise, as far as the aches and pains that you're dealing with, playing that physical position of center, getting hit every play, getting hit in practice, do I want to go through this right now? I'm sure he's going through it right now mentally. Does he want to go through with another season with the Arizona Cardinals? Because as far as him trying to work his way into a trade, I mean, why hasn't there been a report, Rodney Hudson has requested a trade at this point? I mean, it just seems like, why wasn't it made way back in January, February, March? It just seems like you're not doing anybody any favors, including, if you're his representation, your client.
Well, yeah, and I would agree with that, but at the same time, he's not here right now, and you've got Justin Pugh, who himself is going to retire after the season with the starting center group. Like, that's concerning to me.
Look, yeah,
and so
that is very concerning. You got a guy who's played guard his entire career, and you got him now taking snap. I mean, we saw guys who played center struggle playing center, especially with the snaps. And you're going to put Justin Pugh, who is 265 pounds because he thought he was going to retire. He's putting on a pound a week. Like, is he even going to be big enough to play the center position going forward?
I just feel like Keim potentially overplayed his hand. Because
or as Speedo Jackson said in the chat, aka Frank the Tank, aka Frank, Frank Sanders, is it much to do about nothing? Is it a guy pulling a vet move and hey, man, like I get it what it means, Cliff. I understand how it looks, bro. But you're not going to tell me how to do this shit. And my body don't feel like it right now. I'm going to show up when it matters.
Why do they care?
Let me ask you
why
this.
Why do they care? I wouldn't care.
When I heard the comments
it's everything how it looks, though. Johnny,
let me ask you this, though. Calvin Beachum, one of his teammates, one of his offensive line teammates, and Justin Pugh both talked yesterday, and they're like, look, he's figuring out it's above our pay grade. Is any of that like say, okay, maybe it might not just be a vet saying, hey, I don't want to go play in 110-degree heat for 2 days?
That's not above my pay grade. That's not a looking out for your family thing. That's if I don't want to go to mandatory minicamp, I'm telling my buddies, like, I'm doing right by me, get my body right. I'll be there when you need me. And then we talked about that yesterday, Bo. If I was convinced that one of you guys was gone, but I knew you'd be coming back, I'd allude to it. Nobody alluded to Rodney Hudson coming back. And I also think if Rodney Hudson is only out for mandatory minicamp, you're getting those younger guys snaps. You're not moving your best and other interior offensive lineman to another spot entirely to have him work as the first team center. If this was temporary, you would not see Justin Pugh for 3 days or whatever it is moving to center. That is the biggest red flag out of all of this is Justin Pugh coming out and saying, like, yeah, I'm getting ready. This is not just a Band-Aid thing. Like, I feel like I could play here.
Well, they don't have a backup.
Johnny, but I'll say this.
Well, they could sign one. They could go bring somebody in.
Yeah, but sometimes, like you said, like, I mean, they're trying to think about vacation as well, and they're just not trying to work guys out, pick another center. If they got a guy, hey, all right, what's the position versatility? Let's look through his file. Yep, he played center, 2 years his rookie year, played some in college. We could just throw him in there for camp. And to your guys' point, above my pay grade, that seems like that's like trade talk, like, or like I'm going to retire.
I agree
that's not
with that.
like to Johnny's point. That's not like, hey, if I knew something, but it may not. It's also guys get a bit confused because they think because they're on the same team, their lockers are near each other, that guys have this special relationship with each other. You could work with
Justin Pugh was just in his wedding, was at his bachelor party.
There you go.
That's where I push.
Okay.
That's where I push back on the notion that, well, maybe he's not happy with the players here. Like, he is beloved. Like, I don't know his relationship with Kyler Murray. I would assume it's okay, and Kyler has respect for him. So, like, if I had to guess, it's 100%. He just doesn't want to be an Arizona Cardinal because he doesn't want to be in Arizona. Like, he wants to play for another team. Has to be my best guess. And for people who are like, well, just trade into Kansas City. Coincidentally, the center who should have been here, Creed Humphreys, is the center for the Kansas City Chiefs. So they're not going to do that. So I'm sure Keim and Kingsbury are like, well, shit, if we have to trade this guy, we're not just going to give him away. We don't have a center in return. This is a unit in the interior offensive line that even with Rodney Hudson last year struggled at the end of the year. So I do feel like this is my only kind of saving grace with all this. If they felt like this was serious, like no Rodney Hudson for the duration of the season and we're screwed, Tyler Lindenbaum would be an Arizona Cardinal, or the kid in the second round they attempted to grab, I can't remember his name. They would have traded up and made sure they got a top 50 center prospect. If they were convinced.
Communication, Johnny, there's no communication about that. Like, say, for example, right, until you have mandatory or voluntary, mini camps.
Maybe they were blindsided.
Yeah, I mean, I think that per Cliff's reaction, that's how I kind of feel. Like, that's how I feel like, hey, we didn't really know about this. I can't believe that he didn't show up. That's the feeling that I got.
Yeah. I think everybody's killing it in the chat, by the way. We appreciate everybody joining us this afternoon. And I think it's just like the Kyler thing. It's just like the social media scrub. It's not anything. It is something that people should be concerned about, as far as there is a real potential chance that Rodney Hudson could not be playing with this team come September. Come game 1 against the Kansas City Chiefs, you might not have Rodney Hudson. Or, yeah, he could show up for training camp and you're like, oh, that was just stupid. Why did we wait? Why did we waste 20 minutes, deliberating this, as far as Rodney Hudson.
This is what we do, Bo.
It's what we do, absolutely. No doubt about it. But I mean, as far as under the radar leader that you can't help lose, as far as the Arizona Cardinals go, it's damn near impossible for the Cardinals right now, with where they are in the offseason, what they have in house, to replace a guy like Rodney Hudson. I mean, the team was 9-3 with Rodney Hudson in the lineup last year. The points per game were up over, close to 28. Without him in the lineup, they were 2-3, and they were scoring like just over 22 points per game. I mean, you could see there was a major difference between how Kyler Murray and that offense operated with Rodney Hudson and without Rodney Hudson. And to think that he might not be there to start the season, it's pretty terrifying for Cardinals fans.
What else is terrifying is you opened last year with 3 of your 5 best players being Chandler Jones, DeAndre Hopkins, and Rodney Hudson. And this year, when you open up against Kansas City and Patrick Mahomes, it's a good chance you may not have all 3 of them available to you. I mean, you think about if we would have ranked the hierarchy of Cardinal players last September, you probably throw in Budda Baker and Kyler Murray. There's your big 5 on the team. And now 3 of those guys are potentially gone. It's disastrous. I don't know. People have been asking me, should I take the under, gentlemen, via Vegas? I'm not ready to go that far in terms of the Arizona Cardinals over-under for the season, but you can check that out right now on the DraftKings Sportsbook app. In the meantime, if you're ready for an NBA champion to be crowned, join the finals action with DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. We've got Game 6 on tap tomorrow. I'm pulling for the Boston Celtics. I would love to see this game go to a Game 7. We just need Jaylen Brown to play a little bit better, right? Marcus Smart. Let's see these guys pull out a Game 6 W in Boston. And if you're a new customer with DraftKings, you can make up to $5 bet and get $150 in free bets instantly. If you're looking to turn another small bet into a big payday during the NBA Finals, with a DraftKings same game parlay, you can do just that. This NBA season, a customer actually placed a $5 same game parlay, won over $5,000. You can create your own parlay by combining multiple bets like which team will win, total threes made, total rebounds, and more. And boom, you have a shot at an even bigger payout. It's a call to action. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use that promo code PHNX. Bet any $5 bet. Make any $5 bet. During the NBA Finals, you get $150 in free bets instantly. That's promo code PHNX. Only at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. Minimum age and eligibility restrictions apply. See show notes for details.
Now, Rodney Hudson was the only guy that was unexcused as far as Arizona Cardinals minicamp goes. And the rest of the guys were there, including Hollywood Brown, reuniting with his college quarterback, Kyler Murray. Pumped about this one. The more I hear from Hollywood Brown, the more I like this guy. Hard worker. He's doing everything he can to get up to speed as far as the Cardinals playbook. I like what he said his offseason plans were. We heard from Hollywood Brown, had a couple takeaways from his press conference. Here's Hollywood Brown and Cliff Kingsbury kind of talking about what Marquise's role is going to be in 2022.
Yeah, no, I think, Hop is such a dynamic playmaker that when he gets back, we'll kind of see where we're at, how it's been going, who's playing the best, where, and adjust from there. But I think we'll have a plan going in where we want guys to start positionally and then go from there.
It's not about really like a fit. It's really what helps the team. I feel like I definitely can help the team in the role that I'm asked here, but I help the Ravens as well. So it's really about what's the philosophy of the team.
Go ahead.
Cliff even said, hey, we've envisioned him more like he was at OU. That's the role we envisioned for a guy like Marquise. What were you going to say, Johnny?
No, I can tell you his best role is going to be the number 1 receiver for the Arizona Cardinals, because I think by the time 6 games rolls around, he's going to be established with Kyler Murray. And those two are going to have a connection that, with all due respect to DeAndre Hopkins, like, this is the future 1A and 1B tandem for this team. That's why you don't trade a number 1 away for a number 2 receiver. And I love DeAndre Hopkins, but DeAndre Hopkins has to prove to a lot of us that, number 1, his career is not on a downturn because he's 30 years old and he's got a PED knock and he was hurt last year and he's coming off injury now. If Hollywood Brown is cooking on all cylinders, you don't mess with that. And I love that Cliff alluded to that, saying like, whomever's playing the best, we're going to roll with that. And then Hopkins will slide in and we'll make it work. And I think it'll be best for everybody. But there's the ideal scenario for this organization, if you ask them privately, is for Hollywood Brown to take it to another level with Kyler Murray.
Guys, and that's going to have to happen scheme-wise in terms of Cliff drawing up plays that fit Hollywood's athleticism, right? Because data has shown that him playing off the edges X or Z, that's not where he has the most impact. It's playing that slot off the ball. So him transitioning out there, I think Cliff is going to have to move him around a lot, Johnny. So my thing is obviously getting him, creating space, giving him opportunities to create mismatches, with those secondary defenders. Are you okay putting your number 1 or number, 1B guy inside to get? Is it okay if he gets 1,300 yards? Because I think scheme-wise, I don't think that suits him well playing outside versus inside. Inside is where he's been the most successful, gotten the most yards, but a lot of Kyler's throws are on the perimeter and outside, D-hop, jump balls, things of that nature, extending plays. And I see him can be just as good Christian Kirk, if that's going to be acceptable for that pick. Is that acceptable for that pick for the 1-for-1? Or is it, Christian Kirk got first round money for sure, but is that acceptable, guys, for if he comes here and is Christian Kirk?
If he's Christian Kirk in the slot, Christian Kirk was second in the NFL as far as slot yardage goes. Routes run out of that spot.
Are you okay with that, Johnny?
No, fuck no. Hollywood Brown, you trade him for a number one, and you're going to pick up his fifth-year option. Like, Hollywood Brown has to average, I think, between 1,100 to 1,300 yards per season, and I think he will, because I think he's a better player than Christian Kirk is. With all due respect to Christian, I think he plays to Kyler's strength more. Kirk was kind of a default deep threat option for this offense, but it never felt organic. It feels organic with Hollywood, and he's a flawed player too. But I'm under the impression that with the amount of targets that Hollywood Brown is going to get from Kyler Murray, he is going to. Christian Kirk never had a 1,000-yard season here in Arizona.
Well, I was talking more like I'm okay with him in that role because I think he's going to be better versed for that role.
Right.
I think Cliff told us though that's Rondell this year. Rondell's playing underneath. He's taken over Christian Kirk's kind of role from last year. Hollywood Brown's playing outside.
But it's documented, Johnny, that's where he struggles is getting off the ball, press, man coverage, and granted he's had over 1,000 yards. He's proven himself in the league. But to me, it's like if it suits his ability, why not utilize him in the slot?
They can trot out AJ Green's corpse when Hop comes back, and those two guys are on the outside, and Hollywood and Rondell will be underneath. That's fine. You can mix and match a little bit. What I don't want to see is horizontal pass plays to Hollywood Brown. Everything needs to be vertical. I don't want to see horizontal pass plays to anybody not named, Trey McBride, who can run over people and break tackles. So, but no, I'm whatever. I understand your point, Damien. I agree with it because Cliff Kingsbury has not been good about with Hopkins or Rondell, Christian Kirk, his first 2 years, like putting receivers in the best position to be successful. But I'm just so bullish, even with this Rodney Hudson stuff and this Hops stuff, especially, that Hollywood Brown's going to play outside for the Cardinals and he's going to have his best season to date.
Man, you're bitter these days. This Rodney Hudson thing is throwing you for a loop.
I hate being negative. I got to eat Little Caesars on the show yesterday. That was fantastic. I was hoping we'd get resolution and I'd see a Bo Brock.
That's one of your biggest problems. If that's your comfort food, if you're going to old Little Caesars for a good piece of pie, you got that's a big issue in itself. But look, what I like about Hollywood Brown,
smart man. What is the Johnny $5 for? What is it? What's
$5.99 for a full pie, ready to go. Can't beat that, man. I'm a family man. I came in, I delivered that to my family after using it as a prop on our program. And it was like Christmas Day all over again. I'm handing out slices like I'm Santa Claus. It was fantastic.
Got it in the hot car and everything. In the hot car with no.
Yeah, who picks up Little Caesars at 3 p.m.?
I'm gonna take a dump in a box and I'm gonna sell it for $4.99.
But guys, real quick before we move on, what's the Rodney Hudson Kyler effect? Do you think they're more apt to doing this quickly, Johnny Bo? Like, do you think it impacts it in any way?
Yes.
They have to get it. They have to get it. I know Cliff talked about it, right? Highest paid player in franchise history, but when and what's the effect? How do you guys see it playing out?
Well, let's talk about the state of the offensive line. We didn't really do that in the first segment, but here's your starting offensive line without Rodney Hudson. Humphreys, who was bad last year, is your left tackle who's not under contract. I think Will Hernandez play left guard, right? He's a reclamation project. Pugh, who's going into retirement after this year, who weighs 265, who's never played the position for the duration of the season. He's your starting center. Justin Murray coming off injury, and Josh Jones, who was terrible at right guard. They're competing there. And then Kelvin Beachum, who's going to be a free agent. That's your offensive line. So I think if I'm Kyler Murray and Eric Burkhart, Bo Brock, just hand that over the old depth chart here in mid-June to Michael Bidwell and saying, hey, you do what you need to do, but I'm not showing up with this shit.
Right. It's the old Russell Wilson playbook. It's like, oh, you're not gonna give my guy any help. Well, give us all the money then, because you're not investing in the offensive line. No, it's gonna be huge. Cliff even mentioned today about an extension for Hollywood Brown potentially. Could that free up some dollars, some future dollars? This is what Cliff had to say about Marquise's contract, including Kyler's as well.
Yeah, we'd love to get it done. Obviously, there's deals that Steve's always trying to get done to help with cap room and make sure we're doing things at the best level we can on that side of things. But Hollywood's a guy we see as a long-term answer if we're able to make that work.
In Hollywood and in Kyler Murray, that's great. You've got two of your most dynamic playmakers. You potentially you're talking about extending them, but beyond this, as Johnny points out, none of your starters on your offensive line are locked in, and that's very concerning. Not to continue to like sit here and say, hey, we need to be waving our hand over the panic button, but it's very concerning as far as the future of this offensive line. You got to hope that Josh Jones is going to take a step in the right direction, whether he fits in a tackle or guard. As Johnny mentioned, he didn't look good at guard. But without Rodney Hudson, if Pugh's moving over, I mean, we talk about how important the interior of that offensive line is, and you've got, as far as any NFL team in the league right now, probably the biggest unknown as far as those three players playing those positions starting an NFL season this year.
I mean, guys, it would be concerning if I were Cliff Kingsbury, Steve Keim, obviously Kyler Murray. I would sleep a little bit better if I had, $90 million, right? And be like, yeah, sure, what I mean, whatever, whoever they put out there, whatever, I'm gonna be okay. You know what I mean? One of those deals. But if I'm Kyler, I want that bag. I think Hollywood. I think what you got from Cliff is like, yeah, sure, we hope that it works. And I don't remember who was in the chat, but they said that Hollywood's going to be a mixture of both outside and slot. And I agree with that because I think they're going to play around and just see how he fits in with this offense because of the versatility that he has to move him inside and out. Johnny, to your earlier point, we haven't really seen that with Hop or, AJ Green, not saying that AJ Green is Hop, but we haven't seen without the exception of inside receivers, guys like Rondell or Christian Kirk, where they would do the jet sweeps and things like that. We haven't seen Cliff get creative with those number one or number two receivers in terms of play calling. So I'm anxious to see. I mean, maybe that's why they go after a guy like Hollywood so that they can do that. They can be, more diverse in terms of their play calling, but he's going to have to step up in a major way, and much is expected of him given Hop's absence the first six games.
They have not invested enough on their offensive line in terms of the right players, in terms of premium top 50 picks. We've talked about this ad nauseum. The last top two player on the offensive line was, DJ Humphries, and he's been a nice player. Before that was Jonathan Cooper, and there's been a lot of Mason Coles in the second and third round. I mean, just to me, it comes down to the fact that Steve Keim is not prone to drafting high-end offensive linemen. He's not into it for whatever reason, and when he does, he misses. So I do think that they could remake this offensive line in an offseason. I think they could make another deal if they had to. But I think that's probably why they're so frustrated now, is they're probably thinking to themselves, yeah, we got some uncertainty, but at least we've got old Rodney Hudson. That's going to be a stability for us the next couple of years. We'll let it play out with, DJ Humphries. If I'm DJ Humphries now, I'm looking at Steve and I'm saying, hey, I'm the best thing you got going right now. I'm the youngest. You drafted me. Why don't you kick back a little bit of money and sign me to a little quick extension here? And I would not be surprised if that happened, because I'm sure they would love it for Will Hernandez to work out and be competent, because I think he would be back with Sean Kugler, but he could be awful this year. I hope that's not the case. I hope, just like Hollywood Brown, buy low, change of environment, and he can come here and play his best football. But we haven't seen him do that. I do think Josh Jones could be a capable right tackle over the course of 17 games, but as long as Kelvin Beacham's here, that's not an option. Maybe they look into that next year. But their interior right now is probably, without Rodney Hudson, the worst in the NFL. I'm confident in saying that right now. It is the softest, most finesse interior offensive line that the league has going. Will Hernandez needs to show me that he can be a starting NFL guard again. Pugh it's just a complete unknown at center. That's not something I want to be doing with my franchise quarterback. And then at right guard, you got a couple replacement level guys. Josh Jones is a better tackle. He's meant for tackle, and Justin Murray didn't play last year. So I don't know how we can sit here and think this team is going to push around the defensive lines, the dreaded defensive lines in their own division. I mean, we saw what happened when this offensive line turned into just a sieve at the end of last year. Mm-hmm. Kyler Murray was running for his life. He was taking bad sacks. He was throwing interceptions, turning the ball over. Where they were at their best when this offensive line was a cognizant unit and they went into Cleveland and they beat the shit out of the Browns and they ran the ball effectively, right? And I think they want to get back to that. But I mean, talent's talent. If you don't have the bodies, you know the horses. Damien, you know this playing in the league. You can scheme up whatever you want if you're Cliff Kingsbury and Sean Kugler. But if you're starting replacement level guys on this unit, you're going to get Kyler Murray hurt. You're not going to be able to sustain anything in terms of a run game. And we're all bullish about these running backs. But once we see kind of they're bringing in a bunch of offensive linemen, then we know the writing's on the wall with Rodney. What I hope for is no news is kind of good news. No Billy Price, no Treader from, LA, whomever. That means they feel good. Maybe he'll show up. But we're just guessing at this point. I don't know.
Yeah, don't forget, I mean, Sean Harlow was a guy who came in and he was he flashed a little bit and he struggled a little bit. I mean, that's what you're going to get from a backup caliber guard in the NFL. I mean, they have some guys there, the guys they drafted at the back end of the draft. You really are going to have to rely on guys stepping up. It's just a bit naive, in my opinion, that those guys are going to get you to where you want to go, especially in such a tough division, especially facing the front sevens that they're going to face. Even with Seattle rebuilding their defense a little bit, it's not going to be easy. So as far as that offensive line, it's gone from, raise your eyebrow a little bit that they're going to run it back. You appreciate the continuity, but without Rodney Hudson, it's in rough shape.
Yeah, I mean, it's a problem, guys. I mean, it's a problem. It's something that everyone who's associated with the Cardinals is concerned about, because they know that you got to protect Kyler, you got to give him an opportunity, and without Rodney, I mean, that only makes things worse.
He turns 33 in July, and if people are saying, well, he's older anyway, I mean, you have no contingency plan. To Bo's point, you've not invested picks. I love the developmental guys that they got, on day 3 of the draft this year. But those are developmental guys for a reason. If any of those guys play this year, significant time, it's an unmitigated disaster. It's a disaster if that 7th round guard from Oklahoma plays, and I'm bullish on him, and hopefully he can stick. Name me one offensive lineman since Bobby Massey that this organization has drafted on day 3 that's been worth anything. I can't think of anything. This is a position group that they cannot draft for whatever reason. So they've gone out and they've thrown money at players, once upon a time, Mike Iupati, Jared Valdir, and it's worked in certain cases. And I love the Rodney Hudson trade. I didn't want them to overpay Corey Lindsey. Remember, they were in on Corey Lindsey till the last hour, and they would not go above what the Chargers paid. So they had to pivot the next day, and they traded for Rodney Hudson. And Rodney wanted to go to Kansas City. If Rodney had been cut, he would have gone and signed with the Kansas City Chiefs. And who knows, in an alternative reality, maybe the Cardinals take a flyer on Alex Mack for a year and then they draft Creed Humphreys. That's not what happened. They coerced Rodney to stay because they gave him more money. And then clearly, in my opinion, based on what we're seeing, Rodney did not have a good experience last year. And this is where we're at. They're without a contingency plan, without an all-pro guard, center.
I had to have a liquid lunch after minicamp today, but I also added some great food. I went to Four Peaks with our producer, Jacob. We had a great time after minicamp. We're heading into the off season for the Arizona Cardinals for the next month and a half before they head out to Glendale, but we had a blast. I saw Mike Bercovici.
Is that a drink? A blast, Bo? Is that one?
A Baja Blast?
We had a couple of blasts, if that's the case. I actually had Wow from the Joy Bus. It was delicious. It kind of tastes a little bit Blue Moonish. Hopefully that's not blasphemous to say to our Four Peaks.
Better than Blue Moon.
It is better than Blue Moon. I learned that today. It was fantastic. But I saw Mike Bercovici, who used to be Sun Devils quarterback, now is on the Arizona Cardinals coaching staff, and it reminded me of one of the greatest moments I ever spent in Tempe at Four Peaks. It was the Jalen Strong. It was the Jale Murray at ASU. It was when Burko was the quarterback, and they were down at USC in the final seconds, and we're sitting there. We're about to have a little tear in our beer after that because we thought they were going to fall to the Trojans, and Burko unleashes the Jale Murray to Jalen Strong, a guy who we thought was going to be a beast at the NFL level, never came to fruition. But we just absolutely, it was an electric factory at the Four Peaks there. Had a blast. Everybody was high-fiving. It was before COVID, so you were hugging random strangers. It was unbelievable. And you mix that with the great beer that they have on tap there. Of course, they brew it on location, and the great food. One of the best moments of being a sports fan was had right there at Four Peaks. And you can have one of your own favorite moments at Four Peaks, watching any of the Valley sports, all the watch parties we're going to have there. We're going to have our NHL draft party there in the next couple weeks. Four Peaks, perfect partner for us at PHNX. Of course, 21 and older. You want to drink responsibly, but just wanted to get that in there that we're pumped to be partner with Four Peaks.
Yeah, want to remind everybody too, as Bo said, we're going to be out and about for the next calendar year plus, because that's what we do at PHNX. And as it relates to Arizona Cardinal tailgates, parties, we're going to have plenty this year. But I want everybody to make sure they're safe and healthy, so you can come and hang out with us, hopefully for another playoff season. And because summer is here, you've got your own set of pool parties, barbecues. I hope everybody's having a good time. But with all that going on, it's important to feel protected. COVID-19 vaccines are free right now for everybody over 5 and up. Those 12 and older are also eligible for a booster. Visit azhealth.gov for a location nearest you. Again, visit azhealth.gov/find vaccine. We want everybody to be able to come out and kick off what is going to be a banger of a year 2 for PHNX. And to do so, I don't want people coughing all over me.
Right.
Let's be happy and healthy together.
I mean, speaking of which, speaking of get-togethers, and I want to list a couple veteran fathers, just kind of get your expertise, because I've got a 1-year-old birthday party coming up. What should we do? What should I do as the parents? Because you always hear from
Pop an OG, maybe.
not for me personally. As far as what I should put our friends and family through, as far as the 1-year-old birthday party, because we know that the kid's probably not going to remember it. Do you force that on the people you care about?
I think that you could always. I think you have to ask, Bo. Like, hey guys, get in, but totally understand. Like, no pressure. Like one of those. I think it's more so, the misses that you're gonna have to okay it with. You know what I mean? In terms, because they love the production, they love everything about it, having the memory. Whatever, we don't care if we die from COVID. It's the first birthday. You know what I mean? It's that type of situation. But I think that you could ask and then just put the precautions out there, and communication is key, but letting them know that given the times that, hey guys, like, make sure that you're, shotted up, because we got a little one that we're worried about. You know what I mean? If not, we could virtually get you in there. You know what I mean? Somehow, some way, whatever it is. And I mean, there's all types of ways to adapt, man. Johnny, what do you think?
Best piece of advice, Bo, is that do not subject your guests to gift opening for a 1-year-old. Cut the cord on that. If you're allowing gifts, that's fine. We typically like to do no gifts. We're selfless, shameless plug here at the Venerable household. But if you do have gifts at the party, say, guys, we're not going to do with this. So if you want to talk to me about the present you gave, give me a call tomorrow. I'll give you a hard time about your Fisher-Price tricycle. I'm a grown adult man. I don't want to spend 90 minutes watching a 1-year-old attempt to open up a box. So scrap that entirely. Come in, make it kind of family style, put a bunch of food out, have some beverages, make it a social kind of atmosphere. If there are other kids involved, make sure there's a competent setup for them far away from a lot of the adults. Maybe have another kid supervisor, like a 15, 16-year-old, but do not. My biggest pet peeve when I go to other people's houses for kid birthday parties is let's monopolize the gifts one at a time. It literally makes me sick to my stomach. It's worse than watching Kyler Murray run for his life because of a poor offensive line.
I knew I could count on you, JV. I knew it. I knew that you had a bet.
I would sign off on that. I would sign off. I mean,
it's 2022. No one wants to see your kid open gifts.
Right. Nobody wants to watch your video of your fireworks that you shot. And nobody wants to watch your
with
kid.
Your iPad. The old people that do that at 4th of July.
Well, I take it back. I mean, because it's like, the guys are going to be you can't be in the backyard in Arizona because it's so damn hot. Yeah. But the guys are going to be somewhere drinking a kilt lifter. You know what I mean? Having a good time, posted up in the shade somewhere, talking about Rodney Hudson not showing up to mandatory minicamps and not knowing what the hell is going on in terms of the birthday party until they get the tap on the shoulder. You've had 32 of them. It's time to go. You know what I mean? That's just what it is. But I think you got to definitely get the communication from the missus, like, hey, what do you think is best? But I mean, there's so many variables nowadays, man, with COVID and, being, interactive. But I think Johnny created some great opportunities with the kids playing away and keeping them locked up in a room or a closet where they can't.
Give me the old LT stiff arm here. That's what I'm looking to do.
What you should do? Rub some whiskey in every kid that comes in the house on their gums, and then just watch them lay down, and then you guys have a good time.
Certainly one way to go.
I knew I could count on you guys bringing
They'll take a good nap.
Telling the exact, or yeah, as Johnny mentioned, get the OGs. Whatever tickles your fancy a little bit. If you're not into drinking, of course, you got the OGs, which is one of Arizona's first scratch-made cannabis kitchens. You got the creams. You can get into the orange creamsicle. You got the blackberries and cream. Orange creamsicle. It's picture like fresh squeezed oranges, hand-churned vanilla ice cream. It tastes like a dream. It's a creamsicle. You used to buy from the ice cream truck. OGs, they've got all these different flavors. They've got their tropical line. Their motto is flavoring life. So if you get some of that out at whatever event you go to, I think you're going to be probably hailed one of the best guests in attendance there. If you're interested in learning more about OGs in their amazingly delicious variety of flavors, go to ogsbrands.com. That's OGEEZ brands.com to find OGs near you, Johnny.
So we'll wrap things up today with this, and we teased it in our PHNX _Cardinals tweet today. And it was something we were actually going to talk about yesterday, and then the Rodney Hudson shitstorm took over. So there's a certain pass rusher in Chicago that supposedly is not happy with his contract. Formerly, I believe once upon a time, an LA Ram gentleman, Robert Quinn, who had somehow 18 and a half sacks last year for the Chicago Bears. I had no idea that was a thing. He was fantastic. Jacob Infante, who covers the Bears, says that his value is never going to be higher. He's on a bad Bears team. He's holding out for either a long-term deal or more money. They're basically saying, like, the Bears are saying all the right things publicly, like we want him here. But Jacob is alluding to the fact that, like, their best bet may be to trade him to get a third or potentially an early fourth. Now, I would have been all over this move a couple days ago, but now after what we've seen with Rodney Hudson, I do not think Steve Keim and Cliff Kingsbury have an appetite to trade away another mid-rounder for a guy that's uncertain about maybe committing to this team long-term, especially a guy who's right around the same age Rodney was. So while 48 hours ago, I've been like, hell yeah, gung-ho, go get Robert Quinn, solidify that edge rusher opposite Marcus Golden. But now I'm thinking this is not something the Cardinals are going to touch. They got their own, issues with trading picks for players.
I know that there's a major issue with Rodney Hudson, but I love the Robert Quinn piece, because what obviously the Arizona Cardinals are missing, losing Chandler Jones, 10.5 sacks. We talked about that, but I'm just a big fan of Robert Quinn, obviously because of his timeless production, but also the fact that he was a high school wrestler. And those guys are just unique. They're gritty. They can, they can fight, and they don't quit. And I
like him as a player. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's a rarity. Yeah, I'm a huge fan of what he can do for this Arizona Cardinals defense, and take attention away from all the younger guys, defensive linemen, interior linemen, and open things up for the linebacking core. But Johnny, to your point, do I see that happening with what we got, the uncertainty with Rodney? It's a big question mark, but I think it would definitely help the Arizona Cardinals defense. No question.
Look, if it's going to cost you a third-round pick, I don't see any issue. I mean, you're going to probably gain a third-round pick as far as how Chandler Jones and Christian Kirk exited this organization, get that comp selection, and then you can just deal it, and you get a guy that can immediately bolster your pass rush. You can't feel snake bitten from Rodney Hudson. I mean, you have to shoot that shot. You absolutely do. You had a chance to solidify your offensive line for your young quarterback, and you did that because Rodney Hudson wasn't coming here otherwise. So I like the move. And you've got, as far as Rodney Hudson, if you chalk that up as an L, you look at Steve Keim's trade resume, and he still has a very impressive trade resume despite his inability to draft. I mean, he sent a pick out for Chandler Jones. He sent a pick out for DeAndre Hopkins, essentially. Kenyon Drake, the list goes on and on. The only L's he's going to have potentially are Rodney Hudson and probably trading up for Josh Rosen and selecting him 10th overall. Other than that, a pretty spectacular trade record. So you can't be snake bitten just because it went south for one or two players. Robert Quinn is a guy that can immediately help this team bolster their pass rush. I like it if it's happening. We're gonna have to check in with our guys from CHGO, Adam Hogue, see if there's any chance that the Arizona Cardinals can work something out.
Guys, real quick, Johnny, do you think it could be a situation because of the Rodney situation going on right now, where it could be a Von Miller type Rams deal, where they know it's there, there's potentially interest, and right before the trade deadline, they're on a going where they need to go, and they get them just to turn the corner. And
absolutely, that's exactly what happened with Zach Ertz last year. This time last year, or even before, they had interest in trading for Zach Ertz. It didn't come to fruition. Howie Roseman and the Philadelphia Eagles felt like they needed him, and then of course Max Williams goes down, the rest is history. Keim makes it happen. So it's a great point, Damien. Just because they don't trade for a player now, Keim's made an acquisition each of the last 3 trading deadlines. You love the aggressiveness. Bo just mentioned Kenyon Drake, Marcus Golden, Zach Ertz. We'll see. Devon Kennard's going to get about 4 to 6 weeks to prove himself, and then the clock's going to be ticking. Clock's always ticking here at PHNX Cardinals. We are live every day at 4 p.m. Be sure to like, subscribe, leave us a 5-star review wherever you get your podcast. Check us out at gophnx.com. Become a member. Chat it up with us on our member Discord. 99 cents for the first month, $8.99 for the subsequent months, or become a member for the entire year. Do it now before our coverage kicks it into high gear this fall. Just under $60, and you can comp a free t-shirt like this Tucson Wildcat shirt from our PHNX merchandise locker. You can get the hats that my bros are sporting right now for just under $30. Want to appreciate the comments. We're going to continue our coverage of minicamp, the Rodney Hudson saga, as the week continues. For Bo Brock, Damien Anderson, I'm Johnny Venerable. We will see you mañana. Goodbye, everybody.